Alrighty. Brain is really trying to warm up. Okay, so just like last year, I am making a tier list for what I streamed this year. I'm gonna try and from now on break it down to yearly, so hopefully this will be a bit more consistent. So yeah, this is the tier list. I only have 5 tiers. It's usually just pretty simple. My criteria, like last year, was how much would I recommend the game and generally how good the game is. That's kind of it. I don't really do more than that. It's kind of a I like it and I talk about why I like it, or if I don't like it, then I talk about why that's the case. Most games end up in the A tier though. I think last year it was like the A tier was just massive, and then B tier, and then there was like 1 or 2 in C and D. I don't even think I used the D tier. I think S tier had like 5 things in it. Without further ado, how about we get to what we have? Okay, so it's in alphabetical order, so I'm just gonna go alphabetically. This should be every game I streamed. If I missed any, then I'll have to, someone will have to let me know. I also included a couple games that I didn't stream, but I played enough this year, or I found them important enough that I played it this year to include them because they were part of my broader gaming scope. So I figured that would be a fair inclusion. Starting at number 1, we have Amnesia the Bunker, which we played that I think it was for Halloween this year. I know I played it for a little while and got really stressed. I remember distinctly, I think I quit midway through because I was getting too stressed with the monster. Granted, it's some of the best horror I've ever played. God, is it painful. It is painful to play, but honestly, really good game. For the horror fans, I think it's fantastic. I think I'm gonna put it B tier only because it's one of those things where I couldn't recommend it to everybody. The game is fantastic, but if you're not a horror person, this game will stress you into, it'll stress you like nothing else. It would hurt, and it would be a hard sell for me to say play Amnesia the Bunker if you're not a horror person. Like if I know you're a horror fan, go play this. It's fantastic though. Okay, next one is Antechamber, which we're gonna talk about a game that was played with it, because we played Five Nights at Freddy's 1 through 4, and Antechamber came up after 4 because I got jump scared hard enough that I actually physically injured I didn't really injure myself, but I pulled a muscle in my chest. I guess that is an injury, but I hurt myself playing that. So we played Antechamber after that, and Antechamber's a weird puzzle game. It's very bizarre. As a game, it's very weird. It's an artistic experience. It's very strange, but I'm actually going to put it in A because I think it's a really good game and it's a brain teaser. And I think sometimes it can be a little hard to figure out, but it lets you go at your own pace. And it's a really nice game. And it's it's kind of, I imagine that people with ASMR experiences would really like it because it would, has a lot of soundscape stuff going on. It's really neat. I think it's fantastic. So I would recommend it. Armored Core 6. I'm going to put it above Antechamber. I'm going to put it there first and then explain. Armored Core 6 is one of my favorite games. I didn't stream it, but I played it a lot this last year, especially after it came out. That's some good stuff, and it's fantastic. It is an absolutely fantastic game, but I can't recommend it to everybody because it is a FromSoft game, and I will say that there are bosses that are spoilers that will make your brain hurt trying to deal with them, especially if you bring the wrong setup. It's pain. Also, I did beat Balteus before the version 1.02, before that changed over, so I've earned the right to say it's hard, but yeah, no, it's fantastic. Go play it. Oh. Okay, yeah, we're just gonna have to talk about Starfield. So I streamed Starfield the first 4 hours of it, and off stream, I beat an entire run of the game because I wanted to know if I really disliked this game or if it was just, okay, maybe it's that first couple hours of, it's when you start a game, it's like the first couple hours, you need to get through that growing period. No, I'm putting it. So here's the thing, I am an Xbox person. Come on. There it goes. Oh, nope, not. Beyblade can go back. Beyblade doesn't belong in D tier. But Starfield, Starfield. I play Xbox a lot. I really like Xbox games. I like Bethesda games. Starfield is, professionally speaking, Starfield is not a good game. And I have some receipts for this. Gameplay-wise, you just gave Fallout 4 a jetpack. It's not that impressive. It's not innovative. The ships are, I'm gonna be honest, I play the ship combat. It's okay. The characters, so this requires me to spoil one thing. If you're in Starfield, you don't want to get spoiled, skip. If you're okay with me spoiling it, the end of the game pretty much nullifies any character development you do with any characters you've made friends with. You basically, every time you finish a run of the game resets your timeline and sends you into another world, into another, universe, basically multiverse stuff, and you lose all of the buildup that you've had with the characters you were working with that whole time. It's such a stupid decision. The reason why Skyrim and Fallout 4 work so well is because you get attached to these characters and you get to develop with the characters. So why would you include a reset button that gets rid of all that every single time? It's mind-boggling. Not to mention the fact that the world design is awful. Game sucks. professionally speaking. And personally speaking, there's a lot more expletives I could throw at the game, but I'm not going to. But I can't recommend it. It's not good. Moving on. Speaking on a better game. Okay, I gotta be honest. Me going to Beyblade V-Force tournament battle and saying onto a better game from a Bethesda game feels like 10 years ago I would have punched my own self in the face for saying that. Beyblade V-Force gets to go. I'm gonna put it below the bunker. I actually really like the Beyblade game. It's really fun. It's a GameCube title. We played it. I think we played it early in the year. I'm trying to remember what month it was. I think it was early into 2023 that we played Beyblade V-Force. It was actually a lot of fun. The controls are pretty responsive, and controlling a Beyblade is oddly satisfying, and also it's hilariously passionate about it. Honestly, really good. I think it's fantastic. I only put it in B tier because there are certain things that lack a little bit of quality. I would say definitely there is only like one thing you do. There's not really a story. It's just kind of you battle Beyblades in tournaments and that's it, which is just fine. The gameplay is fantastic, but it's kind of like, okay, after you're done, you're kind of there. And also the PNGs of just literal pictures of Beyblades in the gallery it's kind of funny. Also, I can only recommend it so much because I imagine emulation would be the main way people play it, and you'd probably want to play this with your friends, and it'd be a little awkward with the setup, but I don't know how you'd do that. So that's kind of why it's in B. It's pretty good though. Bloons. I think I'm gonna put Bloons under. It's gonna be kind of somewhere in the bottom. We played it as a historic thing. I played it using the Ninja QE collection. Honestly, it was pretty fun. I enjoyed it, but it's got that syndrome of it's an old Flash game, and it was meant to be something that you just kind of play in your off time. It's still a great game, and it's a great piece of gaming history because of what it represents in terms of how people were making games on websites and making small little bite-sized experiences, and it's really cool. But playing it nowadays, you can kind of feel the age. So as a player, it's kind of like, okay, it's aged a little weirdly. But as a game designer, it's really nice to look at it because it's a great way to visit your fundamentals like collision and check it, like doing counters. If I were to give like an assignment to somebody to make games, I would say trying to recreate Bloons would probably be a really fun, interesting project for like a whole semester if you're in like college or in high school even, because that's the kind of stuff that practices your fundamentals and also just it lets you test out weird stuff, and I think that's really neat. So yeah, still a good game. Conquest of the Crystal Palace, I'm gonna put it A. I think Conquest of the Crystal Palace ended up on the tier list for technically last year, but I wonder if I'll differ. As an NES game, Conquest of the Crystal Palace is awesome. We played it very early in the year, and I think that's why it was on last year's tier list. Might have been January to March. It was really fun. I remember it. I might have a bit more fondness for it because of time passing, and genuinely it's really fun. It's got great music, and the humor in it is really well done. And as an NES game, it's a little bit more accessible for emulation, and I think I played it that I was still with a keyboard. I had not yet gotten my controller yet, so I think people could hear my constant mashing on my keyboard, but it was really good. I had fun. Wonder if that is different. I'll have to check the tier list after I'm done recording and check. All right, let's see. Darkest Dungeon. Darkest Dungeon we played, oh god, what month was it? It was somewhere in the middle. I think it was post Persona 5, which we'll get there. I think Darkest Dungeon's also going to be, I think it's going to be right up shoulder to shoulder with the bunker for me. I remember finding it to be really fun and interesting, but there were times where I wasn't really sure what to do in terms of like refining and improving my own strategy. It's a pretty fun game because your whole thing is you're exploring these dungeons and you're constantly shuffling out your teammates because they are dying rapidly. It's like this mix of gothic horror and Lovecraftian horror that works very well together. And the art style, I think, is what really sells it. Even if there's any hitches in the gameplay of Darkest Dungeon, they kind of get glossed over because you're just immersed in the ambience, the sound design, the audio, and the art style, because I think a distinctive art style let it cover some of the hitches. But if you're playing for many hours, you start to feel it more often, which can be a little frustrating, but it's like, well, it still works very well. Overall, good game. Okay, Dark Souls 2, it's gonna be one of those I put it down and then explain myself. Yeah, it's up here. It's gonna be the bottom of A tier for me, and I have a weird reason why. Dark Souls 2 aged in a way that I recommend people play it, not just because I like it, but also because I think for anyone who wants to get into Dark Souls, if you play 2 and if you've played 1, 2 feels weird. It takes risks. It does interesting stuff and takes risks. Did all of them pan out? No. There are some things about Dark Souls 2 that are frankly just weird. I think one of them is the way that they design the world, and also it's mostly just weapon maintenance. A lot of that stuff is what causes the game to go, because trying to maintain your weapons can be a hassle, and weapon degradation sucks in Dark Souls 2, but it's honestly a fantastic game. And I think, especially if you push yourself to see what it's trying to do from its perspective, you start to understand that the game is telling this really interesting story about a kingdom that fell, and it genuinely got me interested. And I normally am not super deep in the lore with the Souls games. Like Dark Souls 1, 2, 3, the lore doesn't always capture my imagination, but 2, it did, which I really want to commend, and it was really interesting. It also works better because I was playing with friends. This is another one I didn't stream, but I played off stream a lot. I actually finished a run with my friends, and it was really fun. I actually really enjoyed it. Alrighty. Another one we didn't stream. Dead Rising 2. I've been playing this with a specific friend. This one's gonna go up here with Armored Core. Dead Rising 2 is as a single player experience, it's already really fun. As a cooperative experience, it's probably one of the funniest games I've ever played. It's a zombie game, and you have 3 days to solve the conspiracy that's going on in the Vegas Strip. It's basically Vegas. It's zombies in Vegas. And the combo weapons, hilarious. The gameplay, fantastic. The story, I feel like if you are even just remotely aware of basics of storytelling, you probably will get the story within the first, couple hours. But it's fun, and it's infinitely replayable due to just being a fun place to explore. There is a lot to do, and it's very funny. And I think people would really enjoy playing it. And it's available on a lot of platforms, so go play it. I think Earth Defense Force cheats because I did stream it once. I streamed 4.1, and I also played 2025, which are essentially the same game, but 2025, I think this is 2025. Yeah, it is. Okay, no, I can read now. I did stream 4.1, The Shadow of New Despair. It was one of those PC games that I wanted to play more for me than for anything else, and it's just a fun game. I'm gonna put it at B though. It's definitely, if you're not into arcade shooters with a lot of things to hit, or you're afraid of bugs, not a great recommendation. But if you're into arcade shooters with grinding and just stupid weaponry, it gets really stupid real fast, and it's very fun, but it's a grind to get the best weapons. So I would recommend it for the players who really like the arcade shooters. Okay, now we're back to streaming stuff. L-Sword, I think I'm gonna put up above Dark Souls 2. L-Sword is a MMO. It's sort of like a 2D, 2.5D brawler, and I've streamed it a few times already, and I really like it. I streamed it the first time, I believe it was 2022. It was like near the end of the year. I think I streamed it for the first time. I remember I streamed it once, and a lot of people showed up and were like, yo, it's L-Sword, and everyone's really excited about it. And it's interesting because there's a really passionate group around the game, and it's a really fun game. And it sort of plays like if you took the combination of like hotkeys from other MMOs and you took that and applied it to a brawler style game, sort of like playing Smash Brothers, but you have like a health bar instead of stamina. It's got some really interesting stuff going on, especially gameplay wise. Just it does some really innovative stuff with it. The way that my brain remembers how it works is it feels like playing Smash Bros. Melee adventure mode, going through the stages, but that's the whole game, and it's really fun, and I think it's really good. It does take quite a while to unlock multiplayer, which I still haven't done yet, but it's very good. I recommend it. It's fantastic. Five Nights at Freddy's 1. We did this as our Halloween this past year was playing the Five Nights at Freddy's games. And I actually beat Five Nights at Freddy's 1 in one go. I think Five Nights at Freddy's 1, I think for all the games we've done so far, I think I'm going to make it my first S tier. It's going to be the bottom of S tier, but it is S tier. Because as a designer, it did something fundamentally different from all other horror games. And it kind of got to this place of timelessness where now it's just a classic. It's sort of like when you go back to play Ocarina of Time or the original Mario Brothers, or you play other games that are considered classics that don't age, which there are a couple other ones on here that I can say say the same thing about. I think that it, as a designer and as a player, it still feels fresh. I know the strategies very well, but that's just because I played this game a lot when I was in high school, which is weird to say that I played it in high school, but I think it's fantastic. I think the classic deserves more understanding if you're going to go into horror games, because especially if you want to get into making horror games, I think you need to play Five Nights at Freddy's 1. If you're a first-time player of horror games, I actually think this game's fantastic for it, because it's a novel experience, and also it's genuinely a little bit easier to handle because it's animatronics, and yeah, there's jump scares, but there's warning, and even if there isn't, yeah, it's just like, oh, it's jump scares. It's not like a long-standing dread, because each night is only a couple of minutes. It's pretty compact, which is good, and I think that's fantastic. So overall, really good. All right, Fortnite. Okay, so I play Fortnite off stream every now and then. It's one of those things that I play it just because it's something that everybody can do. It's free, and I don't know how many people don't play Fortnite at this point, but I understand if people don't play it. I will put it's going to be shoulder to shoulder for me with Dark Souls 2, where it's going to be an A tier because I can recommend Fortnite easily, mainly because of the things that happened recently with where they made more game modes. So if you have a group of friends and you just want to play game modes and you look up how to play those, it's made it more into a sandboxy Roblox. It's kind of like Roblox, where you just kind of now can play prop hunt or death runs or just weird modes. So you don't have to play Battle Royale if you don't want to. There's also the new Rock Band mode that's actually really cool. I actually had a lot of fun with it. It's surprisingly good, even if you're playing on a controller like I do. It's very weird. And it's a fun game. It's good. It is technically impressive. It does a lot of cool stuff. It is a little bit weird with it's an IP soup. You know, there's just every single thing is in Fortnite, but it's fine. It's pretty good. I think it's all right. We'll see if I still feel that same way in a year, but I think it's pretty good overall. Garden Guardian. Okay, another game I didn't stream, and I only played this a couple times. However, the developer, I follow him on Twitter, and honestly, the game is fantastic. I love this game. I actually really like Garden Guardian. I only got to play it a couple times because I got busy when it came out, but I got it when it came out and I played it. It's a Game & Watch style game where you move a character to different spots and you're tending a garden while keeping bugs away. And the art is beautiful. The music is fantastic. And just, man, gameplay's great. It's great I think it's fantastic for, you know, taking breaks. You want to play something quick, and it's a fantastic little bite-sized experience. And it has unlockables, and it's really nice. I can't recommend it enough. It's on Steam. Go get it. I think it's on the Switch too now. I think Garden Guardian's fantastic. All right. Actually, no, it's not an S tier, but it is an A tier. It's a high A tier. I think I'm gonna put it right under Dead Rising. I think that's just because I played GoldenEye 007. I streamed it. I think I streamed it once or twice. I think I streamed it once, and it's a long-standing classic. I will say that the Switch version I played it through, it's a bit rusty, but I think that's because the controls are very bizarre on a Switch controller. Like if you're playing on a N64 controller, I imagine that issue goes away. The world design it's the grandfather to a bunch of games that came out afterwards. You know, the open-ended, here's this open map, go figure out how to get through it and handle the enemies in front of you. And it's GoldenEye. It's one of those games that I think we don't analyze enough because it just becomes synonymous with fantastic shooter. But overall, it's still really good. Oh, this is the S tier. Oh yeah, Hi-Fi Rush. Oh, we played this one all the way through. Hi-Fi Rush that's peak gaming right there. Fantastic soundtrack. I played the streamer mode soundtrack. I do know they use licensed music in the non-streamer mode version, but I really liked the original music they made for the game. I think it fits the tone and the moments better, in my opinion. I really liked it, and the game is fantastic. It's responsive. It's a rhythm fighting game. It's like Devil May Cry was Rock Band, and it's utterly fantastic. Also, the character writing, peak. The character designs, also peak. It's doing everything right, and everything that it's doing uplifts the other parts of it. And it's just such a phenomenal game. So go play Hi-Fi Rush if you can. Wherever it is, go play it. Okay, we're back to another one that I didn't stream. I think it's because it's in alphabetical order, so a bunch of them are way up top. Oops. Honkai Star Rail. I'm going to put it right next to Fortnite, but above Fortnite. Honkai Star Rail is a turn-based RPG, but it has the Genshin Impact style gacha elements. I'm normally not a fan of gacha games, mainly because for me, I don't like the concept of a game that softly requiring you to spend money, and I don't like that much. But Honkai Star Rail doesn't really you don't need money to play it. I play free to play, and it's still one of the best games I've played. It has fantastic moments. It has really fun writing, and it's just a fun RPG experience overall. And it also happens to have the whole, you can upgrade your characters, and each character you can upgrade if you do summons, and it's just fun. Honestly, I think it's fantastic. I'd recommend it to a lot of people, especially if you enjoy Shin Megami Tensei or Persona. I think as a free game to pick up, it's really good. There's a moment with a song called Wildfire that if you know, you know, but if you don't, it's one of the best moments I had last year gaming overall. The moment sells it, and the story is really strong, actually. For a free game, I think the story writing that Hoyoverse is doing is really good. Again, just fantastic. Okay, now we're moving into the beginning of the year. This is Eco. So I played Eco and Shadow of the Colossus as a pair because I presumed they were related due to the way that they were packaged together. They are related in that it's the same company, but the story being related is more of an interpretation than strictly what it tells you, because the game doesn't tell you much. The instruction menu tells you some. The story between the two games can be consumed separately. And I think Eco is another, I think the only reason I can't recommend it more and make it S tier is strictly just because of availability, because I don't know how easy it is to get the game, but I think Eco gets to sit at the top of A tier for good, because I think Eco it's one of the best games I've played in general, and it's interesting because it's one of the games that says the least, and I mean that literally and metaphorically, because it doesn't directly tell you much of anything. The most you get is what the characters do, and that's it. You get what they do, and if you go, there's some stuff you could do with post-game stuff. If you want to replay the game, it gives you subtitles in the game's native language, but I almost feel like that learning what they're saying would take away from the mystery of it, because the game's story is about two characters that meet each other and they just understand each other. They don't need to share words. They understand feelings, and they understand each other, and they want to escape the castle together. And I found the adventure and the journey thrilling and emotional. It was evocative without having to be wordy about it, and I really loved the game. So Eco it's hard to get unless you're emulating, probably. I played the PS3 remaster because I got a PS3 and I wanted to play using the PS3. It's really good. I don't know how available it is besides, other means. Oh man, if you can play it, please play it. Eco's it's one of the best games I've played. Okay, the next game is Kingdom Hearts Chain of Memories, and this game I think is I'm gonna put it at the top of B tier. This is me having to fight my own biases. Kingdom Hearts Chain of Memories is one of my favorite games of all time. It's mostly because I got it as a kid and played it into oblivion, and it's just one of those games that I have a soft spot for. The Game Boy version is, in my opinion, far easier to play, but I know that there are parts of it that lack due to the fact that it's a Game Boy game. Namely, the cutscenes and the story. I think some of it there were some things they had to do shortcuts for, and that's fine. I can recommend it to people who really, for people who are, seasoned gamers or people who want a different thing to do on the Game Boy, but I know that there are things about it that people find frustrating. I think namely the card system is it's like coffee. You either like it or you really don't. And the Game Boy version is a lot more forgiving with the whole card system. Yeah, it's one of those ones where if you play other Kingdom Hearts games first, getting into Chain of Memories is a hard one to do. And that's fair and that's reasonable. The Game Boy version definitely is a lot easier to stomach though, in terms of gameplay, because the way that moves work and the way that the game is organized is a lot easier to handle than the 3D space with the cards. I have played the original version on the PS2/PS3. It is rough. It's a rough experience. So I can put it at B, and I can be impartial in saying that I still recommend it a lot, that people give it a try and try to approach it with the fresh eyes of this card system is really cool, but it takes a little bit of getting used to. Alrighty, next game, Kirby Air Ride, is a definable, I think it's gonna go right next to Eco, and that's gonna be me allowing bias to come through again a tiny bit, but professionally speaking, man, this game is still fantastic. I think Kirby Air Ride is one of those games that's very hard for me to not just be like, yeah, this game is fantastic. And it's one of those timeless games from the GameCube era that doesn't feel like it ages. And I wish they would make a Switch version of it, because I'm pretty sure it would sell like nothing else. It's a fantastic game. You're riding around on the stars. There's a lot of unlockables. There's a lot of fun things to explore. It's a racing game, basically. If you're playing it normally, it's a racing game. If you have a means to play it, please do. It's very cool. And I hope that's Nintendo, please. Okay, Pokemon Stadium 1. Pokemon Stadium 1 is the one we finished it more recently. We started Pokemon Stadium 2, which is still currently ongoing in terms of streaming. Pokemon Stadium 1, I gotta put it like, I think I'm gonna put it between L-Sword and Honkai. I think Stadium 1 is one of those ones that I can recommend on the basis of nostalgia, like the triangle of nostalgia, gameplay, and availability, because now it's available through a lot of means, and there's a lot of ways you can play with it that it's just really fun. The Stadium games are just fantastic. They're an interesting peek back into the past of how the games worked in Pokemon, and you get to see how Gen 1 just so greatly differs from Gen 9. We're at Gen 9 now, geez. But seeing the difference between them, and you get to do it directly because now it's on the Nintendo Switch with the N64 library. So getting to compare the origins of Pokemon to where it is now, it's really cool to see that the innovation in the series is still there, because there's a lot of stuff that Stadium does that Stadium is also just fantastic, because again, you're bringing to life these, they're originally 2D sprites, now you're making them 3D models, and the model work is just, I still find it phenomenal. It's excellent. And I really love the games. So Stadium 1, it's still impressive. I really like it. And I think as a game designer, it's great to look into these to see what developers were doing at the time and realizing how easy it is to do that stuff now. Because man, there are some stuff that back then it was an actual pain to do, and now it's just, oh yeah, we can just do that now. Oh, this is our first C tier, I think. I wonder if my thoughts of this will have changed since the last time I did one of these. But Inculinati is a strategy game that's played on a 2D plane. You control characters that you draw into existence, and that's the whole gimmick, both in terms of art style and in terms of the gameplays. You draw people into existence, use ink, and you create units to go fight your wars. And they're like cute little fox people and cat people and dog people. The art style is fantastic, and I think the art was what carried it for me. The gameplay really starts to show holes when you try to do runs and get more technical with it. The game starts to have holes, and it mainly comes down to the fact that there is no real learning process. It's just you have to keep trying and seeing if you can make out what you need to do to improve. And it's not an easy game to learn because there's very little explained, and it has some issues also with how some of the balancing works and how some strategies just kind of override other strategies. The imbalance can be felt very easily. I couldn't recommend it too well unless you're a really big strategy buff and you want to try something new, but yeah, for most people I would skip over it. It feels a little sad to say it, but I would kind of not recommend it. Okay, Mario Strikers Charged. I'm gonna put this one, I think I'm actually gonna put it next to Amnesia. Mario Strikers Charged is the Wii version of Mario Strikers. This we played, oh goodness, what month was it? I think it might have been in August somewhere, but it was one of our Sunday games that was very bizarre in terms of, okay, we have a weird variety going on. And Mario Strikers Charged, it felt kind of like Foxbox back in the day, like on TV, because it has this oddly grungy, really punk, like kind of punk style to it, but the music was immaculate, and the art style that they were going for and the modeling, they did a fantastic job. It's a weird banger of a game. The only reason I couldn't recommend it more is because some of the motion controls are a little bit strange. It takes a little while to learn it, and once you learn it, it kind of just makes certain abilities nullified, because there's a whole thing where you can charge up this super move, and against the lower AI, you can land them pretty consistently and get a bunch of goals. But if you are fighting a higher AI, or you're very good at it, at like blocking the shot, basically they don't do anything, and it's really awkward. So it's one of those things that it's a little bizarre. But I played Princess Peach a lot, and I really they gave all the characters a lot of attitude, and it's something you don't see very often in the Mario series. So I give them props for doing something very different with Mario Strikers. So it's really cool. And also that art style is banging. Okay, the Nintendo Switch library. This is kind of me summarizing what I said the last time we did one of these, where I think I included in the tier list all of the individual games in the NES library that we played in a stream where we played just as many NES games as we could. And I'm going to put it between Fortnite and Honkai, I think, put it up here in A. I think the NES library, just as a whole, with the variety of well-known titles from that era and the lesser-known ones, the ones that didn't quite get to stand out as much but are still being followed very well, I think that there's a lot of great games on it, and I think people should give it a try. It is a subscription thing, though, so I can't recommend it further because I'm like, it's money. But I do think that for what it's worth, it's very worth it, because it's a lot of games that you can try out, little ones that are great for filling in like laundry days. Like I played Solomon's Key every time I went to laundry for a solid couple months when this first came out. So yeah, it's one of those things that you just start playing NES games as little arcade breaks in your day. It's really fun. This is LiEat, which this will represent the trilogy of the games. And you know what? It is going to go up with Eco, which I feel like is going to require some explanation. So LiEat is a trilogy of RPG Maker games that I believe someone redeemed for it. So I don't think I knew what LiEat even existed until I was recommended to play it through stream. And the three games are essentially one story, but they are separated as three smaller titles that you buy as one trilogy. It's kind of like with Voice of Cards, where you have three games that collectively make up one big game, but they form and that one big story is broken up into three smaller sections. LiEat is fantastic. I think the writing is really well done. The allegory of the lie-eating dragon and the two characters together. My brain is blanking on names, but the dragon girl and her father figure, the two together are absolutely like a delight to watch. And the story it's engaging and gripping, and I really looked forward to every stream we played it. I also played the good ending off stream because I was really mad that I didn't get it on stream. I was really like, no, I need to go get it. And I recorded it the next day because I was really upset. But overall, yeah, fantastic game. It's really well done. It's on Steam, so I recommend going to find it. It's some fantastic stuff. It is short too, though, but it uses its time efficiently, and it's a fantastic experience to go through. All right, next one is Pokemon Emerald Rogue. I'm gonna put this, I'll put it in the top of B. I will dethrone Kingdom Hearts Chain of Memories, but I think it's because Emerald Rogue is weird. Because on the one hand, if you're into Nuzlocke or you really want a new challenge in Pokemon, Emerald Rogue is fantastic for that. Otherwise, I could hem and haw about it because it caters to a specific group of Pokemon fans, namely those who have played a lot of the games and are looking for something different. Emerald Rogue is actually a ROM hack of the Pokemon Emerald, and it's its own unique experience because it turns Pokemon into a roguelike and enforces Nuzlocke rules, which is really cool. But for those who really like the journey of a normal Pokemon game, I couldn't recommend it, but it's for those fans who are experienced and want to try something new. Also, for some reason, no matter what I do, I try to use the EX version of the game, and because there's a EX version of Rogue that lets you use Pokemon up to, I believe it's Gen 7 or 8, and for some reason it never works for me, and I don't know why. If anybody in the comments could tell me why I can't get it to be all the gens, I would like to know, because I would like to play it again on stream sometime, maybe do another fresh save file and try with the new stuff, but I can't get it to work properly. But it is a fun game. It's really cool. It's interesting what it's doing, and it is fun. Pikmin, the original. I believe we streamed this one because they released it on the Switch, and it came out, oh god, when did it come out? It was about a couple months before Pikmin 4 released, but Pikmin 1, and I actually own it for GameCube, but we played it on the Switch. That one's gonna go up with, I think it's gonna go shoulder to shoulder with Kirby Air Ride, especially now that it's available on the Switch and it's very easy to get. I think the original Pikmin is one of those games that I think is a GameCube classic, and it's one of those ones that doesn't age. It's another timeless game that doesn't really change. It feels like it's still just as responsive, it's just as fun a journey to go through, and it's still just a fun game. Shadow of the Colossus, I'm going to put it where it's going to go, and then I'm going to explain myself. It's basically the same explanation as Eco, where I played the PS3 version of Shadow of the Colossus, and it's the same place for me in my soul of the games that the team did, Eco and Shadow of the Colossus. Those two games are some of the best gaming experiences I've seen in recent years, and they need to be experienced one way or the other, whether watching or playing them. I recommend people play them because the stuff they do, both design-wise, story-wise, like game design wise, in storytelling wise, and in terms of gameplay, all of the game design, gameplay, art style, I'm getting lost in myself because I'm getting excited again about this stuff because it's fantastic. All of these games are utterly phenomenal, and Shadow of the Colossus is phenomenal, and it was directly influential in a bunch of my own design choices in my own game. I'll talk about that later, but Shadow of the Colossus was interesting because the story of it was something unique that I don't see often enough emulated properly. And what I mean by that is that I know there are a lot of games that try to mimic or copy what Shadow of the Colossus did and fail because they fail to grasp what made the game and made that story that is told through the player going forward and doing what they believe is right. And it doesn't work the same in a lot of games because they forget that there's a certain essence of mystery that has to be established before they start allowing the player themselves to unravel it. And that's the part that most games fail, is allowing the player to do that push, to make the jump to unravel the mystery themselves. The game doesn't tell you what to think, it asks you politely, and at one point not so politely, to consider what it's trying to tell you, what is happening and what happened. And it asks you to do that yourself. And that is something a lot of games fail to do, and I think that that's something that's hard to do because it's a risk. A lot of the best games, I think, in the A tier are the ones that ask the player to, in a way, come to a conclusion about what it means to you yourself. In fact, the best games I've ever played, and there are some of them are in B tier, like I would say Amnesia the Bunker, especially Amnesia the Bunker, Chain of Memories, and even Emerald Rogue. I'll include everything from B tier up. The thing that makes them great games and makes them really good is that to some level, they ask you, what are you taking away from this? Some of it is just genuine fun, like Earth Defense Force and Beyblade and Fortnite. You're just enjoying yourself. You're having fun. Some of them, like I would say L-Sword or Mario Strikers or Darkest Dungeon, are asking you to say, I'm gonna make meaning from this. And the highest levels of A tier, I would say from Honkai up, I would even include Pokemon Stadium in this. It's like, okay, you're going on a journey, or you're loading up this game and you're making up something that is, you're giving it meaning, not just through the game telling you what it is. Sometimes the game tells you stuff, sometimes the game doesn't. It's the fact that you get to enjoy this genuine experience that you wouldn't be able to find elsewhere because of the unique fingerprint that these games have. And that's why I love video games. Now we get to, I'm going to put Problem Sleuth down here. And now we get to cut to, all right, here's Problem Sleuth. Yeah, I don't like this game. It's not even really a... Problem Sleuth is one I played alongside Emerald Rogue because I got 2 hours into reading Problem Sleuth, which is essentially an interactive comic. I spent 2 hours reading it, and after a certain point, I developed a headache because I don't really know what Problem Sleuth is meant to be, and I don't get it. Problem Sleuth is a webcomic that was made into a sort of interactive experience. It's very out of pocket. It's very strange, and it feels kind of like the whole time, for me personally, it felt like it was a joke that was being told and I wasn't getting it. Not that I couldn't find it funny at times, but that I wasn't getting it. And that kind of sunk it for me. And I recommend it for people who want to see internet history and see the strangeness of internet in the 2000s. But yeah, further than that, I can't really recommend it further. I still could recommend it over Starfield though, which, man, that starts to feel bizarre to throw down, huh? Okay, Persona 5 Royal. Yeah, I'm gonna put it, Persona 5, we played it from the beginning of the year, from January, I believe I started it in January, about the same time I started Shin Megami Tensei 5 a year before that, which was my first year of streaming. And Persona 5 Royal, again, Atlas knocks it out of the park. Like, I think, because Shin Megami Tensei 5 came out after, and when I was playing Persona 5 Royal, I'm not gonna spoil anything. However, the end of Royal, the Royal side, not the rest of, not the normal, the base game, Royal, I started to see where the Venn diagram was of where Persona 5 Royal ends and SMT 5, like Shin Megami Tensei 5, begins. But the game of Persona 5, focusing on it itself, is a fantastic experience. 10 out of 10, one of the best JRPGs of all time. I understand there are things about it that are weird. Frankly, every game from B tier up, there are things about it that are strange that work in its favor because every experience here has flaws. I would definitely say Stadium with rentals only is a flawed experience. However, those flaws are what endear us to the game. It sort of creates it as a individual, and those flaws are part of the beauty of it. I don't think the games would be as good if they weren't. It's like if they were a like wholly immaculate type of thing, they would almost lose something because they aren't risking stuff. There's no risk in playing safe, and a lot of these games took risks, and sometimes they work, and some days they work, some days they don't. But Persona 5 has flaws, but you don't care because you want to see this story to its end. You want to see what's best for these characters. You want to be there and immerse yourself in this really fantastic story, and the gameplay is fantastic, and the art style is just always peak art style. The music, I listen to the music now all the time. It's just awesome soundtrack. I can't recommend enough that people play it. It's available in a ton of places now, so play Persona 5 Royal, dang it. I really enjoyed it. I played it from January to August, so it took me a long time. I guess the only thing I could say is if you don't have the time to devote to it, it's a hard sell because it is a 80+ hour game. If you're going for 100% like I did, yeah, it takes a long time. All right, next one. Five Nights at Freddy's 2. I think this is going to be one of those ones where I have to put this, I have to say that it kind of goes in the same spot as Five Nights at Freddy's 1. Actually, you know what? No, I'm going to demote it. I'm going to put it down here. The trouble is that Five Nights at Freddy's 1 and 2 to me are so synonymous with each other that it's hard for me to separate them, but 2 does innovate on what 1 did, and it does do some interesting stuff, but I do think that 2 has some faults in that they overcorrect on difficulty, but that's mostly just because you had basically 2 sets of animatronics to juggle, and the game is just hard. It is a very hard game to go through. It is still the same level of fun as the first game, but it does falter a little bit with difficulty. It is a harder game, for sure. But I do really like it still. Still a fun game. This is the Mario Kart Deluxe 8 Booster Pass. This one's putting the tier list of what do I think of, not of Mario Kart, but of the Booster Pack. And I think the Booster Pack is going to go in right next to the NES library. So for me, I think that if you really like Mario Kart and you play a lot of Mario Kart regularly, or you enjoy playing Mario Kart on the off chance you get to play with like your favorite streamer, like I do sometimes on my Twitch channel, but or if you sometimes if you play it with friends, the course pack just adds more game to your game. It's basically adding a whole other Mario Kart game's worth of tracks onto your Mario Kart 8, and it's a lot of content, and I think that I almost feel like at this point it's a necessary addition if you're going to get the game, because it's just so much extra content that blends seamlessly with what you already have in the base Mario Kart 8. Yeah, I just recommend it. It's fantastic. It's just a good extension. Your only move is hustle. Ooh, I remember this one. I'm gonna put this above Five Nights at Freddy's 2. Okay, so your only move is hustle is turn-based fighting games. So if you've ever seen a fighting game like Marvel vs. Capcom 3 or Guilty Gear Strive or any number of fighting games if you've ever wanted to be that frame perfect good at a fighting game, but you don't have the reflexes or the hand dexterity or the skill, honestly, playing Your Only Move is Hustle is a great avenue to try it. And it also is a great way to explore how frame perfect movement works, or how fighting game frames work, because it breaks it down into turns, where every time you do a move, you move as far as the move would go, and you take turns. It's turn-based combat with fighting games. And then the cherry on top to me is that after you finish a fight and one of you loses all your health, you then get to watch the fight at real speed, as in you get to watch it go at real time. And it's like watching one of those old 2000s stick figure fighting animations, and it's so cool to watch. They're so fun, and it's such a great game. I recommend it. Also it's on Steam, and on Steam there are workshop mods. One of my favorites happens to be called Moonwalker, which, if you know anything about the King of Pop, that's basically the character but memed to 1,000. He's my favorite one. Overall, fantastic game. Okay, the next game is Trials and Tribulations, the Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney. That's gonna go, oh man, I think it's gonna go above LiEat, but oh man, I like that. I think last year B tier was really stacked. I think A tier this year is absolutely stacked. But Phoenix Wright Trials and Tribulations, so I played all 3 games in a row. Trials and Tribulations is the 3rd game in the series of Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney, where you investigate crimes, you are a lawyer, and you stand in court and defend your clients. And I think the story, the way that Trials and Tribulations wraps up the story that is established in the first 2 games it's just phenomenal writing, and it wraps everything together. Godot as your prosecutor antagonist is fantastic. I think it was really funny. Like, I went back and looked a little bit to see how I reacted to Godot. When I first met him, I had nothing but disdain. I did not like Godot. But as the game went on, and I understood him as a person and as a character, and I understood the motivations and the story developed, I came to really love this coffee drinking crazy guy. He's fantastic. So yeah, no, he's fantastic, because he alone was enough to keep me entertained, but then the rest of the game just elevated all of the themes from the other games. I think it's just fantastic. Next one, the list is starting to get big enough where now it's starting to push everything around. Next one is Team Fortress 2, which I'm gonna put it in B tier. Team Fortress 2 is a multiplayer shooter. It is, for those who know Team Fortress 2, it's fantastic. It's a fun game. If you're new to Team Fortress 2, it's a high learning curve type of game. You have 9 classes to play, and all of them require a different level of understanding. I happen to be a very mid demo man. However, the game itself is just fun. It's fantastic. It is a very well developed game. It is also simultaneously a horribly developed game held together by duct tape and prayers. And I will say, on a community aspect, the community, when it's fun, is very fun. When it's not fun, it just makes your brain hurt a lot. So I will say that Team Fortress 2 is still a very fantastic shooter. I prefer it over a lot of multiplayer shooters. Recommending it to other people, I would be a little hesitant, because as a multiplayer experience, can be a little dicey. Alrighty, next one is, oh man, I have to fight my biases. The next one is Dragon Ball Raging Blast 2. Raging Blast 2, I think I'm gonna pull it up to, yeah, I'm gonna put it up there with Pokemon Stadium. I think Raging Blast 2, I think it represents a good chunk of games, number of Dragon Ball games. Raging Blast 2 is a game, I streamed it I think once, just because I could, because I have the PS3 now, so I could stream it. Raging Blast 2 is one of those games that represents the history of Dragon Ball and how the games have developed. It's one of those ones that is basically a Budokai Tenkaichi game, but made for a specific time and place, and it's a fun game. I thought it was fantastic. I still think it's fantastic. Going back to play it, I had just as much fun as I did when I was a teenager. It's good. I think it's fantastic. It's a great fighting game too, and it covers a great deal of what Dragon Ball history feels like, because there's a lot of time it covers. It has Bardock, it has the future era with, you know, like future Gohan. It has a lot of characters you wouldn't expect, and an original one named Hachiyak, who was made specifically for the game. I can only recommend it so much though, because it is a PS3 game and never got ported elsewhere. So let's see, next one. Oh boy, I have to fight my biases again. Sonic Frontiers is going up here. It's going way up here, man. I think I'm gonna put it next to Armored Core. Sonic Frontiers is peak Sonic. It's some of the best Sonic I've played in years, and I think I could even rate it higher than my childhood classics of Adventures 1 and 2. I think Sonic Frontiers, no, I don't think I'd rate it higher. It'd be equal, because Sonic Frontiers does a lot of the stuff that we wanted from Sonic for years and puts in an open world package that is admittedly a bit strange for Sonic, but it was a lot of fun. And also the sensation of speed really well captured in the game. And the boss fights are just some of the best boss fights in Sonic history overall. Getting to constantly go Super Sonic was a bit strange, but the boss fights are just, I think the Wyvern boss fight was one of my favorite boss fights of all the games that we've played and streamed. One of my favorite boss fights of all time is the Wyvern from Frontiers. That thing is just an awesome fight. It's so freaking cool. It's so good. I love it a lot. And the music is, again, Sega music. If they fail in music, it's usually just, that's one of those games that absolutely tanks. But Sega music, for some reason, is just some of the best music in the industry still, and I stand by that. It's still fantastic. Okay, the murder of Sonic the Hedgehog, I get to put higher than the Sonic Frontier. I think I'm gonna put it up here with LiEat. I'll put it up here. Okay, so the murder of Sonic the Hedgehog. There's only one reason I rate it higher. It's actually because it's a little bit more accessible, but it's also because it's a weird spin-off that is very bizarre to look into. The murder of Sonic the Hedgehog is essentially it's an Ace Attorney game, but it's Sonic the Hedgehog, and you're on a train and you're celebrating Amy's birthday. It's such a hilarious game, and the storytelling is just, it's funny as heck. It's a fun game. It's a very short experience, but it's absolutely worth it, and it's free. It's such a funny game. I loved it. We played it for a Sunday, and I was just in love with it the whole time because it was hilarious. The end of the game has a picture of Eggman that I'm not going to spoil what it is, but it's one of the funniest images I've ever seen in the corpus of literature of Sonic. It is one of the funniest things I've ever seen. I recommend you all go play it. It's very fun. And it was done as an April Fool's prank, which is just great. Oh, hey, who put that there? Okay, I'm going to put Red Genie where it belongs. We'll put it here. I'll be reasonable. It feels weird to talk about my own stuff on here, but I did play it on stream, which gives me a technicality to allow me to talk about it. Red Genie and Idolatail is my game. Feels very weird to put it up there, but I wanted to give a moment to talk about it in retrospect, because as a game, in my opinion, I'm like, oh, it's flawed. But I also think, yeah, but it was a work of love, and I still think it's very good. The fact that I even made a game feels very surreal because I've worked for years to be good at making games. Frankly, it feels like this game coming out is a proof of concept that me learning about from games and learning from the games I've played on stream and otherwise has come to fruition, because I was able to take the lessons I learned from playing games and from developing games in college. It is a disclaimer when I say this is my first solo game. It is not the first game I've ever developed. I've worked on other games in college. I had to make a lot of things in college, and I did a lot of work to understand and make games before I ever left, my higher education. And I remember that was a point of contention that I was brought to once, that somebody said, well, it's your first game. You need to, you can't expect more. And I'm like, well, it's my first released game under this name. There's a difference. Nevertheless, I'm very proud of the work I did on Red Genie. I can only recommend it so high only because it's mostly just because it's a relatively short turn-based, JRPG style game with a Dark Souls-y type story where you have to really make that first step to go and find the story and to understand what's going on. And there are some minor issues, but that doesn't take away from the fact that I'm proud of the work. I really love the game, and I can't recommend enough that people at least give it a try. If you want to see the game before you ever get it, I would recommend watching one of the videos on this channel to go and see what Red Genie's about, because I have a couple videos on it. I'm very proud of it, and it's a fantastic game to me, and I really love it. Now, to a game that I'm going to recommend hard, put it right here. Voice of Cards. I felt really bad that Voice of Cards did not get much attention when I streamed it, because it's a fantastically written story and the aesthetic of it is sublime. It's such a good game, and there's not enough people talking about it. I found out about the Voice of Cards trilogy on a whim because I saw a random ad pop up on my YouTube, and it was just one time. I only ever saw the ad once, and I was looking at it, and it was just this game that's based on this aesthetic of cards, where the overworld map is made up of cards, the maps of towns are cards, the gameplay is all card based, but it's essentially a D&D campaign, and you're just playing with you have a dealer who's telling you the story, and you are just playing the story, and it's this one-on-one D&D campaign, and it's really well done. It's a fantastic little game, and it's another one like LiEat where it's 3 stories, but they connect together. I didn't get to stream the other 2 because I kind of cut it short because I just didn't see any interaction with it. And that's, to me, is a tragedy because it's a fantastic game, and I'm probably going to force people to deal with my hyperfixation on it when I stream the games later this year, because I'm just going to forego being normal about it and go play the other 2. I'll probably make extra days just to do it. Fantastic game. Go check it out. It's great. It's on the Switch. Okay, so Lethal Company's another one we didn't stream, but I played it a lot off stream, and I'm gonna put it up here with Five Nights at Freddy's. I don't know what on earth is going on with this game, but it's probably one of the most hilarious things I've ever played. It has horror elements to it, and it's a very scary game if you're in the right situation, but it is a hilarious game. I've had many Looney Tunes looking moments happen while playing Lethal Company. Not to mention the fact that technologically it's doing stuff that I've never seen other games even try. Like the Doppler effect being something that happens while you're just moving around in the game. The proximity-based sounds are so well designed. And the gameplay loop of going to gather scrap, selling stuff. It's an arcade style game where you just kind of keep going until you can't go anymore and then you lose. But it's just so good. Like, holy crap, man. It's a fantastic game. Go play it if you haven't, especially if you have friends. It's an absolute dream of a game. All right, continuing. Let's see. Sonic Generations. I think I'm going to put it lower in... I think I'm going to put it actually in... Oh, God, where do I put it? I think I'm going to put it at the bottom. I think I'm going to put it below Dark Souls. No, I'm going to put it above Dark Souls 2. I think that's fair. Because I really like Sonic Generations. It's a shockingly short game if you're playing it if you're just playing through the game and you aren't stopping to do 100%, but it is a rather thorough game in terms of giving you challenges and variety to do. Though in terms of the levels that are available, it is rather short for a 2D, 3D platformer. It's really fun still. I still think that Perfect Chaos getting a remixed boss fight in this game is one of my favorite moments of all time. It's a fun game and it's really good still. It did age a little bit strangely. I played the 360 version. It's still good. I think it holds up really well. And also, I think it's one of those ones that serves as a great historical moment of this is where Sonic was at the time, and for its faults and its flaws, and for all the good things it does, it serves as a great landmark of what Sonic does. And then when you compare it to Frontiers, it's really interesting seeing how that evolution happened and getting to see the postmarks and then seeing the things between them. It's really interesting. It's really cool. I still like it a lot. Legend of the Mythical Ninja. Oh boy. Oh, okay. Yeah, that's that one's gonna go, I think it's gonna go right next to Bloons in B tier. I think it's gonna go bottom of B tier. Feel a little bad for it, but I don't know. It's not even that that's a bad game. It's just that I remember having a heck of a time trying to figure out what I was doing and where I was going the whole time. And it was a very dense game for an SNES game. It was a lot to take in at any given time. And it is a fun game, just very hard to figure out, especially without a manual. Yeah, no, I would recommend it though, especially for people who like the older style games. But for a lot of people who like platformers, I would be hesitant if you weren't already into 8-bit, 16-bit platformers and you weren't looking for something new to try. Alrighty, next is the original. I believe that's the original Ace Attorney. Yeah, no, it's the original. Original Ace Attorney gets to go, I'm gonna put it above its sequel, but that's mostly because the first game, when I will preface this by saying that the Switch version of the Ace Attorney trilogy includes Case 5, which is a special case that was added later on it was a sort of addition to the story of Phoenix Wright's first game. It's between games 1 and 2, but the original game, the first game that Phoenix Wright was in, that's Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney, the first story sets up the precedents that would go on to define the series later, and it's just a fantastic gaming experience, especially for those who like the visual novel styles, the stories that come with that, and also just the investigative work of being a lawyer slash detective, doing that work of, okay, I have to break down this case and deconstruct it, and also figure out some way alongside Phoenix Wright what is going on in this case. And the way they handle it is so masterful. It's mostly focused on the writing, and that is the main crux of Phoenix Wright. If the writing doesn't work, the whole thing falls apart. But the gameplay elements and the music, they're fuel for the writing, and the writing is just uplifted by really fun and interesting mechanic, and frankly the soundtrack is just gold. It's just all gold. It's such a great story to take in, and I can't recommend enough that people try it, especially since it's on the Switch and very easily accessible. I believe it's also on Xbox. I do know that. It's on Xbox Game Pass, I think. Next. Yeah, we knew this was happening. Yeah, this is gonna happen. Stellar Glow, which was the game I started before we started Persona 5, but the two were basically running it. Well, no, I think they were running in parallel at a certain point, I believe. But I know that we started Stellar Glow, I believe, earlier. But Stellar Glow is a 3DS title made by Atlas that was it is a tactics style turn-based strategy game, much like your Fire Emblem or Triangle Strategy, which is Triangle Strategy is a fantastic game. Go play that too. But Stellar Glow, I picked it up, I think off of a recommendation, but I started playing it, and it is one of those games that I wish more people didn't sleep on it, because Stellar Glow is one of the most fantastic strategy games I've played, and it's one of the most interesting stories I've ever had the pleasure of getting to take in. It has a really interesting take on magic and on the trappings of anime, like anime style games and the storytelling tropes of the styles. And it does some really fascinating stuff and also tells a deeply engaging story that hits a lot of different notes and it's just utterly fantastic. It is a little bit hard to get a hold of, but it is available through alternative means, aka emulation. Holy crap, if you can get your hands on this game, please play it. It's gold. And a lot of the magic is centered on music, and the music of the game is just, I call it 11 out of 10. The music is out of this world fantastic, and they knock it out of the park with every track, but they also know when to use the music. There's a moment in the game where they cut all music at a point, and it is one of the most unsettling moments in gaming I've had, where it's just like, this game normally has music everywhere, and you get to feel this ambience and this joy, and when they cut that, it is deeply disturbing. And the true ending is 100% worth it to go get. Go play Stellar Glow. Go do it. Oh god, another S tier. Yeah, Transistor goes up there too. It's gonna go up here with, I think it's gonna go between Lethal Company and Hi-Fi Rush. Oh boy, Transistor. Transistor is a game by Supergiant Games, the ones who did Hades and Bastion. And Transistor is just, ooh, man, that's a fantastic game. That's just, again, peak gaming. It's doing really fascinating stuff with the isometric camera, with all the systems that you do to fight your enemies. The titular Transistor, the big sword this lady's wielding, that Red, her name is Red, the big sword that Red is wielding is just, it's such a interesting dynamic, and the way that the game and the story work together and everything weaves to make such a fantastic story. It's also one of those few games that does the 1920s Art Deco noir aesthetic in a way that doesn't feel tropey. It doesn't feel like it's trapped in the trappings of that style and era, and instead utilizes elements of it alongside this neo-techno stuff together and makes a very unique and evocative setting. And again, music is 10 out of 10. Just utterly fantastic game. Can't recommend it enough. I played it on the Switch and had a blast. Alrighty, next is Street Fighter 6. I haven't played this one in a while. I streamed it, I think, once or twice. I think I'm gonna put it between L Sword and Pokemon Stadium, I think, in A. I think in terms of fighting games, it's definitely far more approachable than older Street Fighter games in terms of playability, and it does a lot to make learning the higher levels of fighting games a lot more accessible for the new players. And just obviously playing through the story mode is really funny. It's really fun. There's a lot of cool stuff going on. If you're following the story, it's really good. It's a fantastic fighting game. Really well done. I think the things it does to make it so you can learn the game, especially the tutorials and the combo trials and the various systems to learning characters, really well done. Fantastic work. Tabs. Oh yeah, this is Totally Accurate Battle Simulator. We played this. I think I was filling in a Sunday with it just because it's funny and it was just a fun time. I think I'm gonna put this one next to Chain of Memories. I think I'd recommend it below Chain of Memories. Yeah, I think that's where it's gonna go. Tabs is a strategy game where you put down armies of little dudes and they go fight each other. Beyond that, it gets more complex because you start having this interesting dynamic of, okay, you have to learn what units to use, how to organize them and put them on the field of battle, and you also have to be able to analyze what your opponent's doing. And it's oddly deep as a strategy game despite how goofy it is, because the physics and the appearances and the aesthetic is very silly, very simple, very goofy, but it's a very deep strategy game when you actually get into it. It's a fun experience and I can't recommend it enough. It's great. Okay, Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel, I am going to be honest with myself and put it at the bottom of A next to Dark Souls 2. I think I ranked it in my last year's video as well. Master Duel Yu-Gi-Oh! Is still my favorite card game. We've played it semi-regularly on Sunday streams. It's still fantastic. I think the ability to play with your friends, to play with your communities, and to be able to learn the games has been, improved. It's still growing. It's really fun. I will be honest and say that, yeah, Yu-Gi-Oh! Is very fun, but you have to have the understanding of where you're playing and who you're playing with and deck accordingly. And I think that's just where it sits. Alrighty, next is, I think it's Mario Party 3. I think we played it, it was like an offshoot thing, and we played it somewhere in a stream. I think it was something that happened in the middle of another stream. I like the original Mario Party. It was really fun. It's interesting, but it's kind of bizarre to play it again versus playing some of the newer titles. And it's mostly just due to how the mini games are designed. And the map design, because some of the map designs are a little bit finicky in the older games, because they were trying new things, and of course with risk comes the risk risk of failure. And some maps felt a little weird, and I think the space one is still pretty good, but it's still a little weird. But it was fun. I remember having fun when we played it. So that's what's important. Ooh, Pokemon Snap N64. I think this is gonna go right up next to Kirby Air Ride, I think. I think I can put it up there safely. Ooh, move stuff. I think I can put Pokemon Snap N64 up there safely. Just a fantastic game. I think for those who really like Pokemon, just the ability to go out on a safari and watch Pokemon go out, and you know, they're acting like animals. They're going out, they're interacting with their environment, they're having fun. Sometimes they're exploding, but that's just because Electrode is weird. The original N64 title was really responsive, really fun, and it showcased why Pokemon spin-offs are really fun. It's the highlight, I think. The Snap games, I think, are the highlight of Pokemon spin-offs because it's one of the most intimate love letters to the Pokemon series. It is also on the N64 library, so you can go play that at any time if you have the Switch thing. All right, next is Five Nights at Freddy's 3. God. Yeah, this one's gonna go next to Legend of the Mythical Ninja. Actually, you know what? Where's Five Nights at Freddy's 4? I'm gonna put you there with him. You have to go below 3. Okay. I'm gonna preface this by saying these games are well designed. They are doing everything they want to do precisely, and they are still very good games, but they doubled down on what 2 had problems with. Again, this is coming from me, and I think technically they are impressive games. I couldn't recommend them well though, because 3 and 4 are even harder. They're even harder than 2, because I think with 2, the trouble is that 2 is you have a lot of things going on that are frankly it's a stimulation overload, and that can be a problem on its own. 3, we'll start with 3, because 3 has a singular hunter that wants to get rid of you, and the AI is very clever, very smart. It is very well designed. It is also one of the most frustrating entities to deal with. Springtrap is just a menace. That game really did stonewall me with, I think, night 4 or 5. I was just stonewalled, and I couldn't quite figure out how to handle it. And that is also I can also say that is partially me as a player not being able to adapt fast enough. I think that's a fair judgment. With horror games, you're expected to have good instincts, which I don't. My general reactions when I get scared are to either freeze up or to to tense up really badly, which has been a problem. I think every horror game I've played, the trouble is that my hesitation is more costly than anything, and it has shown. With Five Nights at Freddy's 1 and 2, at least, I had familiarity working for me, which negated some of that problem, but 3 and 4, I didn't. And it does show. If you go watch those streams, I would still recommend them to horror fans, especially those who like to challenge themselves, because they are hard games. 4 especially, I don't know what the audio cues were. I think that's just entirely user error. I definitely screwed up on 4 because I don't know what I did wrong. That's also the one I pulled the chest muscle in and we went and played Antichamber. That was awkward, but they're still good games. For me personally, not my favorites. Mortal Kombat 1 is going to go right next to Street Fighter. Okay, so Mortal Kombat 1 pretty much has the same flaws and issues with Street Fighter, where if you're really into fighting games, you're going to have a lot of fun, and if you don't, then it can be a little tough at times, a little daunting. I think Mortal Kombat 1 only has a slight edge because it's continuing the story from Mortal Kombat 11 Aftermath, and also as a reboot of Mortal Kombat, it is a very fun story, and I had a lot of fun playing it. It's a very interesting game, and gameplay wise, I really like what they did with a lot of the characters. I think my favorites are right now. I know Sector is my favorite cameo. Actually, I can pretty much play any character as long as Sector is my cameo. But I also really like Omni-Man. Omni-Man was really fun. He's a fun addition. I might play more of it this year, but maybe. It's kind of one of those ones that's like, well. Back to Street Fighter 6 for a moment, just so I can mention it. Favorite character from there is Cammy. I play as her. She's my main. Fun character. Pikmin 4. Ooh. Okay, now the list is slowly closing out. Pikmin 4, I think I'm going to put next to Pikmin 1, but slightly below it. If only because Pikmin 4, I don't think would be as grand without the setup from Pikmin 1. Because Pikmin 4 takes what Pikmin as a series at that point had done and polished it to a mirror sheen and added some interesting new mechanics to both make things a little easier and to expand on the, I don't want to say trappings, but I guess the sort of rhythm that we've gotten used to in Pikmin, because it adds things that, as in the story especially, it really really changes how the game feels. The ability to find things and gain upgrades is very different from what Pikmin 1 through 3 did. I am aware that each of them have upgrades and things you can get and find that will improve your ability to handle the wilderness and to handle all the challenges. But Pikmin 4 adds some genuinely different ways of approaching getting those upgrades, because you have missions from the crew that you're with, which is really different from, oh, you have like Pikmin 1, it's just mostly finding ship parts, and the ship parts can upgrade where you can go, and they help you find items because you get like the radar. But besides that, there's not a lot of upgrades. Pikmin 2 has more of them, and I think 3 has even more, but 4, it makes it a mission-based gathering, not just, oh, I found this part and now I have this thing. It's, oh, here's a mission that comes with, you know, story elements and intrigue alongside the mechanical bonuses, which is a very different approach. And also, it's just a fun, I think Pikmin 4 is just also great. It's one of those series that the Nintendo has that is a little slept on. I think it deserves more light. It's very good. Alrighty, next is Sonic Heroes. I'm gonna be controversial. We're gonna put it up here. We're gonna put it up there. I'm going to be a little bit controversial with this one. And by controversial, I mean, man, it's just my opinion. Who cares? Honestly, Sonic Heroes isn't that bad a game. It's just weird. It's like, I had a lot of fun playing it again, and it was a genuine blast to play it again. Even with the Team Chaotix, and I would say Team Chaotix and Team Dark teaming up to be some of the most painful in terms of challenge and unfairness, because Team Chaotix is just weird. The game is still peak. It's still very fun. I think it's fantastic still. Yeah, it does kind of cheat its replayability a little bit with having you replay levels with different objectives, and sometimes just the same objective multiple times, which I'm pretty sure next year I'm going to make the same comments about Shadow the Hedgehog. You're playing it right now, and it's fresh in my mind because it was last night. Sonic Heroes is still very good. I think it captures the essence of speed very well, and when it's working well, it's a fantastic game. When it has issues, it has issues. I think that is fair to say of every game in the A tier, where if it has issues, you kind of understand them like within a little bit if you're playing the game. Maybe it's an issue of how long the game is, where it's just a bite-sized thing where you only get like, okay, I'm gonna play it for 20 to 30 minutes and I'm done. Or it's something where you have to come back to it later with a fresh mind. It's a good game. I think it just gets a bad rap because Sonic as a series was constantly trying new things, because I think Sonic as a character has two main issues. He has to be cool and he has to be current, which is a very hard, he has to be currently cool, which is a very hard position to be in, because the definition of what cool is changing every decade, basically. Sometimes even in like every couple of years. It is very hard as a series to keep up with that. So sometimes his jokes, his mannerisms, and him being a free spirit in the wind sometimes dates himself in a way, and it can be hard to keep up. But when you look at it historically and you play the game for what it is and you try to live in the moment that the game is producing, not what it came from, it suddenly becomes a better game. And that's true for all the games B tier up, that when you live in the moment the game is producing right now, not what it produced for somebody else, you suddenly have a very unique experience, because it is your playthrough of the game, your story, that is what matters right now, not what you have heard, not what you have seen other people have opinions on. It's you forming your bond with the game at that very moment. And that is where the beauty of video games as a medium is that you are the one driving the car. You're the one taking the story forward, and it is your experience that matters, and it's your experience that you are forming with the game, and that's what makes it good. Now then, getting really into this. Nights into Dreams. I can reasonably put this up in A and not feel bad about it at all. Sorry, voice cards. Actually, I'm going to put it just below voice cards, but it's still going to be A tier, because I actually really enjoyed Nights into Dreams. I had never played it and understood what I was doing when I played it, when I first saw the game and tried it. So I think I tried it once many years before I played it on stream, and I just didn't know what I was doing. And when I played it for the first time and understood what I was doing, I was having a ton of fun playing Nights. It's a very fun game. It's also like a little bizarre because it's dreams. It's about exploring dreams of these two kids and the story these two kids go through of trying to be better people, grow as kids. That none of that matters because you're flying through this crazy space in your dreamlands, and it's just wild. It's fantastic, it's responsive, it's a fun game. The imagery is so different from anything else that I've seen in that era, and it's just very bizarre, and it's very fun. It's got the game essence down to a T, and even if some boss fights are a little easy, I think the Riella boss fight, I think I remember stomping him because I just had him locked down. Honestly, it was a pretty fun time. I thought it was just, I think it's available on Xbox. It's a fantastic game. I'd recommend it to anybody. All right, next, Phasmophobia. Now, we streamed that. That was a collaborative stream I did with Rainbow Sparkles, Pumpkin Jack, and Kai the Crusader. And I never knew the other two. I didn't really know the other two. I knew Rainbow, but back to the game, of course. Let's put this in. I'm going to put it above Fortnite. I'll put it up here. But I played it as a collaborative thing with other streamers. It's one of my first larger collaborations. I've played with fellow streamer and friend Future Savior a couple times on Team Fortress 2, but Phasmophobia is the first time I had ever done a collaboration of like multiple people in a game kind of thing. And I remember it being rather fun. I mean, as a game, Phasmophobia is easy to get to fall in love with in terms of playing it with your friends. It's ghost hunting, and you're just having fun hunting ghosts and trying to figure out what type of ghost it is. And it's spooky, it's scary, but it's not so scary that you're, freaking out. It develops a sense of dread that is manageable, that you can play comedically. It's like Lethal Company, but I would recommend Lethal Company a little bit more than Phasmophobia, only because I think sometimes Phasmophobia got a little too complex for what it is, because there are now like 20 plus types of ghosts. There's all this new equipment, and it's a lot harder to dig into now, versus I think Lethal Company, a lot of the mechanics are easier to understand quickly, and you can learn from your mistakes a little bit faster than Phasmophobia. Great time with friends. Let's see, Pokemon Stadium 2 is going to go straight up there with the first one. Where is it? I think Stadium 2 is right there with it, because Stadium 2 is the Generation 2 version of Stadium 1. We're currently playing it still on the Twitch. The key thing with Stadium 2 is that alongside just being an expansion of Stadium 1's, mechanic of, go battle in the arenas and go win these tournaments, it also does some interesting stuff with what it does around the battles. Obviously, the mini games are still there. They're very fun, but the key thing I want to focus on with Stadium 2 as a difference is the Academy that Stadium 2 did, but Stadium 1 didn't have, was having a way to teach you more about the mechanics of the game, what you can do in Generation 2, but also just teaching you in general the basics of Pokemon battling, which is something most games don't do. Ironically, Scarlet is the one that took this mechanic. You have classes that are meant to specifically teach you. Stadium 2 is one of the very few games that I know of that actually tries to teach you mechanics down to a granular level, such as stab bonuses, or how weather works, or how different moves combo, such as like the rollout defense curl combo. I didn't even know that existed until I played Stadium 2. But stuff like that, I know Pokemon XD has it, and Pokemon Scarlet does it to a certain extent. It's not as in-depth as I would say as when you play Stadium 2 or XD. The fact that it makes this effort to try and teach you advanced tactics is really commendable, and is also just a really good addition to a game that is extremely hard. Because Stadium 2, like Stadium 1, is on the N64 library, and I'm playing it rentals only, and I am constantly in pain trying to. Overall, Stadium 2 is still fantastic. Rentals only is a challenge and a half, and is one of those things in Pokemon that I can't recommend people do, but it is a very interesting challenge if you want to try and challenge yourself as a Pokemon player. Next, we have, Maquette. I think Maquette's gonna go above Garden Guardian. Now, Maquette was a story-based, I don't want to call it a walking simulator because that's a disservice to it. It's a first-person puzzle game where the idea is that you are exploring what happens to a relationship through reorganizing and changing a model of this like mental, I kind of think of it like a mental palace. And the interesting thing about it is that this model, if you take something out of the model, it changes the world around you because you are also standing inside of that palace. And the way that the game plays with scale, just the sheer technical marvel of it being able to control moving all these things and being able to place items in places. Like one of the first puzzles you do is taking a key that you use to open a door, take it back to the model, place it as a bridge to get to a new area inside the model. You look over and the key is now a bridge. It's like a massive key that's now a bridge. Mechanically, it's a fantastic, just technical marvel. It's an absolutely genius game, but the story it tells is also sweet and sad, and it's a relatively short experience. It was about 4 hours, but it was just a wonderful gaming experience, and I recommend it. It's just really good. Let's see. Vampire Survivors. I'm gonna put this one, it's gonna go next to L Sword. So Vampire Survivors is a roguelike game where it's literally just like, usually it's just a control stick and a confirm button, like A button. You just move around and you auto fire. It's one of those games where the mechanics of it are deceptively simple, because what it's doing mechanically is not very hard to understand, because it's just, oh, hey, you're just shooting axes everywhere, or you're, hitting something with a whip. But as you go run after run and you learn more about the game, you learn about combos, you learn about how different weapons synergize, man, it is a fantastic game. It's very simple to pick up too, and it's very addictive. So I can only put it in A, because I can't recommend it to people who get very easily roped into just one more run when they're playing roguelikes where they play for a whole day and oops, the whole day is gone. But that's the only thing that would stop me from recommending it more. Alrighty, next. Oh, time to make some people upset with this one. Oh boy, here we go. So Trials and Tribulations. Why do I put it above in the order of games? Why do I do it 2, 1, 3? Simply put, I just really like the story in 2, and the individual case-to-case basis, in my opinion, was at its strongest. When you take the first, like Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney, the first game, it as a cohesive unit is exceptionally strong. And the thing that I think Trials and Tribulations does a little bit stronger is specifically making each case individually strong, and also making the way that all of the cases come together to form a cohesive message and this evocative story. I think it does it a little bit stronger. I will say that I like the music of 1 more than 2, and I think 3's is pretty good, but the storytelling, I've actually personally found that once I got past frankly the bizarre storytelling of Franziska von Karma, once you've been able to take in the game as a whole, her character makes a lot more sense. Her whole whip thing is just comedic at that point, after a certain point. But to me, the way the whole game handles its story and the themes it goes for, I think it's really well done. And I think it's the best of the trilogy. All 3 of them are standout games and should be played all together because they are all fantastic. Each one though does have one piece of a case somewhere that makes your brain just like, you start scratching your head and thinking, please no. In 2's case, it's specifically, I believe, the circus and having to deal with the fact that everybody was head over heels for a teenager, which does not look great. And in the 3rd game's case, it's the chef. Ooh, Trepang Squared. I think it's gonna be middle of the pack A. So Trepang Squared, which I learned it's actually called Trepang Squared and not just Trepang 2. So Trepang is a game made by former Fear developers, the horror action shooter with the slow time mechanic. And it basically is just Fear in terms of mechanically, but it also has Doom speed. And Trepang Squared is an excellent game. It's a first-person shooter it pays homage and understands what makes a fantastic first-person shooter. It's notably only a campaign, and it's one of the best single-player first-person shooters out there. It takes what other games have done from the past and applies a modern understanding of level design, enemy design, and keeping it simple, and does a really fantastic job of having a just absolutely nuts level of violence in combat. It's very fun. So if you're into first-person shooters but want something that's more of a single-player flair, go play that. It's very good. Next is Metroid Dread. This gets to go. I think it goes right up there in S tier. I think Metroid Dread gets to be up there because holy crap, it's a fantastic game. For the platformer and Metroidvania style games, Metroid Dread is the peak of those games. Because Metroid Dread is just, it's fantastic. It's everything that Metroid should be, and also it's just a fantastic game overall. I think the combination of the music, the score, the way that it develops its tone and its ambience, the gameplay loop of dealing with the enemies, dealing with bosses, it's well handled, it's tight, it's very responsive, it's a very engaging game. Absolutely fantastic. JoJo's Bizarre Adventure All-Star Battle R. I'm gonna put this one, I'm gonna put it somewhere in the middle of B. It's kind of arbitrary where it goes, in my opinion. It's just, I know it's a B level game, because if you like JoJo's and you like fighting games, you'll probably enjoy digging your teeth into playing this game. If you're not into either of those things, it'd be very hard for me to recommend it. The JoJo fighting game is very fun, and it's a really interesting fighting game, and it lets you just have the fun of being in the style of JoJo's and having the interesting, interactions between Stans and Power and Hamon, but not really a big story mode. And you really kind kind of have to be in the know about, you know, references and lines and certain jokes for the game to make any sense. So it kind of falters there, but it's a fun game. It's a good fighting game. I would wait to get it on sale if you are going to get it, especially if you're trying it just out of a whim. So pretty good overall though. Tunic gets to be, I think it gets to go up here. I think I'm going to put it shoulder to shoulder with Transistor. So Tunic is a isometric style adventure game in the style of like the old Zeldas, like Link to the Past. And I had an absolutely wonderful time playing it. I had times where I was challenged and I struggled to figure out where to go and what to do, but I did get I call it a true ending because I was very happy with how the story concluded. Because my interpretation of what happened, because the game is another one that has no real dialogue, and you actually spend the game, if you're doing the B ending as I went for, the whole game is you trying to complete the instruction manual of the game inside the game. And that's how you learn how to play the game, is finding these manual pages. And that is such a cool idea. And it's so criminally I think it's just like, of all the things that the game does so well, the fact that you develop this relationship with the game in that you have to learn the game by finding the instruction manual and learning more about what the game is by exploring, and it keeps rewarding itself. It creates this, you know, this infinite gameplay loop of go find things, learn new information, use that information, find new things, and then you just sort of loop in finding new things and in exploring the information you have. Absolutely fantastic game. Really well done. And it's sort of like with Eco and Shadow of the Colossus in that the games are asking you, like Tunic asks you to do the same thing that Eco and Shadow of the Colossus do, that it wants you to make the conclusion yourself. The only reason Tunic's S tier and those two are A tier, which is now making me feel like I should move them up. I'm going to put them, you know what? I am going to make an amendment. At the final hour, I'm going to put these together. Because I think these three games together, I think those three games together, at the end of the day, I'm looking at that and I'm thinking, no, those three games together form an absolutely fantastic set of games and design choices and storytelling risks that I think needs to be commended more, because it's absolutely phenomenal. And I think those games, that all three of them do those things to their highest level, and they need to be put together. I think A tier was too low for them now that I look at it this way. I don't think it changes any other game on here, but I think that this makes more sense to me. Team Sonic Racing, I'm going to be very weird. I'm gonna put it here. Okay, so Team Sonic Racing it's a kart racer, but I'm not gonna lie, it's got some real heat to it that I didn't expect when I first played it. I got it at a yard sale, like a garage sale. Found it for, I believe it was like $15, but I got it on a whim because I was like, oh, hey, I never got to play this one. And I tried it out on stream. And as a Sonic fan who has a lot of weird and varied knowledge on the series, the fact that the game makes weird deep cut references to various things and also just happens to have one of the best soundtracks I've ever heard in a racing game, it needs more attention because Team Sonic Racing is really freaking good. It's actually fantastic. And not only that, but it's also a really good kart racer, criminally underrated kart racer. I really want more people to try it in some way. It's available on a lot of systems, I think. It's a really fun game. Ooh, I'm gonna take this and put it right next to, can you go next to Sonic Frontiers? So the thing I just put on the list is my general marker for the DLC of Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, because I considered it big enough in a gaming experience for me to be able to put them on, because honestly, I think it deserves attention and praise. Just like the booster pass for Mario Kart, it is something that adds to the game that was enough of an experience that I streamed it enough times that I should talk about it. The DLC for Pokemon Scarlet and Violet is genuinely a big addition to the game, and also the story of the DLC, the two-part story that it tells, is really well done. I really enjoyed it. I happen to like the music. I happen to like all the stuff they did. The Teal Mask as a DLC, not very hard at all. It's, you know, battling wise, you're not challenged too hard, especially if you've beaten the game. But Indigo Disc asks you to be at a higher level of battling that I really actually appreciated, especially after playing Stadium 1 and 2, and I actually learned how to be more advanced in my tactics. It's really, really cool. And if you're a first-time Pokemon player, I imagine that playing all the way through all of the DLC of Scarlet or Violet and playing through the base game, you would actually end up being a pretty thoroughly trained Pokemon trainer. You'd actually be really good at it. So I think it is worth getting. I think it's worth looking into. Just a fun experience. It's just good. It's fantastic. Okay, Monopoly Plus gets to be the only other C-tier game we put up here. Okay, so I played Monopoly Plus as my, I debuted a 3D VTuber model that I tried to use for a little while for streams. I enjoyed using it for a while. Gripes aside, I shelved it because I found it was just kind of a distraction. And yeah, I'm going to be honest, I really like Monopoly. I'm a freak. And to me, also, Monopoly is the ultimate spite, because in college, I was told that rolling dice for movement is awful and should never be done. And I sort of thought about it, and I'm like, well, as a mechanic, yeah, it sucks. But also, why is this guy so petty about this? And to be honest, kind of felt like I think he was mad that his very complex and interesting board game never got any traction, whereas Monopoly sells millions of copies every year. Because Monopoly as a game is a roulette wheel. You are basically playing a very slow roulette wheel. You don't find out who wins until the end. It all comes down to just chance and luck. This is very fun if you come into it with the mindset that it is all chance and luck. If you don't come into it with that mindset, playing Monopoly feels like you are being rolled over on Legos for a very long time. But if you play with a group of friends who understand that this game is silly and meant to be not taken seriously, it's a fun game. Gonna put it in C because I can't recommend it to people who aren't also masochists. New Pokemon Snap gets to go right up to A tier. Right next, I'm gonna put it right above the original. It feels sacrilegious, but the new Pokemon Snap genuinely improves on what the original did, expands the roster of Pokemon, expands how missions work with capturing pictures of Pokemon and capturing, you know, different states that the Pokemon are in. And it also does have a story that's very simple, it's very sweet, and you get to have fun exploring different biomes and seeing all these new Pokemon. You also get to expand how you get to see the Pokemon by, for example, getting to go underwater and seeing ocean Pokemon and getting to see them in their habitats and not just floating around like freaking maniacs like you see like Tentacool sometimes. It's really fun. It's a fantastic experience. Great game. Can't recommend it enough. Overall, an amazing game. The last but not least, Sky Children of the Light is going to go right up there. I'm going to put Sky Children of the Light up there because generally, again, another one of those games that's just really fun as an experience and a really great time. A little bit strange, a little bit of a weird thing because it's made by the company that made Journey and Flow, which no dialogue. It's not explained a ton and it's just overall interesting. But yeah, Sky Children of the Light is just good game. I think it's overall just a fun experience. I don't remember as much of it as I'd like, but I had a lot of fun, and I just distinctly remember it being a genuinely interesting and evocative experience. That was really good. Okay, let's look back at our tier list. Man, oh boy. It's just interesting looking back at all the games I played last year. And this isn't even like the full, this is everything I played all year. So I did add some additional games. There are some stuff I played off stream that were just, I just played them. Man, what a year of streaming. I had a lot of fun. There were frustrations in my journey. Every journey has to have frustrations, I think. There's obstacles and challenges, and you have to be challenged to grow. And I think a lot of these games gave me chances to see things that I never got to see before, got to test out new ideas, and sometimes we just get to collectively dunk on a singular game. Overall, it was a fantastic year, and I look forward to getting to see how this year turns out. So probably at this point, I'll put up the full tier list as like a picture, and yeah, I think this is pretty good. For those who just came in and saw a tier list and are wondering what the heck is going on, I stream regularly alongside making my own projects like books or music or games. I'm making another game. I'm going to see what I can do. I hope that everybody enjoyed this. I think doing this every year has been interesting because it lets me explore what I did last year and think about it. Because last year, I believe I had, I think it was 3 album releases. I believe it was 2 books, and Red Genie came out. So I had a packed year, and I also got to do a lot, and it was a lot of growing. And I can't thank everyone enough for the support and the time that people put in to help see me here. And also just the people who got to be here and hang out with me. It was nice. I hope that this year we'll have even more, big bangers of stories and, interesting projects and getting to play new games. I'm looking forward to seeing what comes next. Now, whenever I see you guys next, goodbye for now, and thank you so much.